The fluorescent lights of Ironwood Logistics Depot buzzed overhead, like angry wasps trapped in glass cages. The warehouse floor stretched out for what seemed like miles, 200,000 square feet of stained concrete, etched with the ghosts of forklift tires. The air hung thick with the smell of cardboard, diesel fumes, and the sweat of men and women grinding out 12-hour shifts for wages that barely kept them afloat. It was a Friday afternoon in late October when Mike Riley first realized something was seriously wrong. He stood at his loading dock, scanning barcodes on boxes headed for big box retailers across the Midwest. His hands, thick with calluses from 20 years of warehouse work. His back, permanently bowed from years of hunching over conveyor belts. At 47, Mike had seen managers come and go like the changing of seasons. Most were decent enough, a few, even kind. But Brad Sterling was different. Before we go any further, if you believe in sticking up for the little guy, if you think hard workers deserve a fair shake, then hit that like button, drop a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Let us know where you're watching from, because stories like this remind us that justice always finds a way, even when the powerful think they're untouchable. Brad Sterling had rolled in 8 months ago, sporting a smile that never quite reached his cold, dead eyes, and a handshake that felt like grasping a slimy eel. He was the new operations manager, brought in by corporate to slash costs and boost efficiency. Within a week, he'd ripped out the breakroom coffee machine. Within a month, he'd squeezed lunch breaks down from 30 minutes to a measly 20. By the second month, the real thievery started. Mike first noticed it on his bank statement. His direct deposit was short, $300 short. He figured it was just a payroll glitch. These things happened. He brought it up with Brad, who smoothly assured him it would all be sorted out by the next payday. It wasn't. The following month, the shortfall had ballooned to $450. Mike went back to Brad, spitting nails. This time, the manager slapped down a stack of paperwork, supposedly detailing deductions for damaged equipment and lost inventory. Equipment Mike had never even laid a hand on, inventory that had vanished from sections of the warehouse he'd never even been to. "You signed the liability waiver when you were hired," Brad said, that icy smile plastered across his face. "It's all perfectly legal." But Mike knew it wasn't legal. And when he started quietly talking to his co-workers, he discovered he wasn't alone in this nightmare. 10 workers in total, all from the graveyard shift, all with families to feed, all having their paychecks systematically pilfered by Brad Sterling. Hiding behind the shield of phony company policy deductions, Maria Sanchez, a single mom with 3 kids, had lost nearly $2,000 in just 4 months. Tyrone Jenkins, saving every penny for his daughter's college tuition, was missing a staggering $1,800. Old Samuel Olson, just 2 years shy of retirement, had been swindled out of $2,300, money he could never hope to recoup. They went to human resources, practically begging for help. HR patted them on the head and promised to look into it. Nothing happened. They called the corporate hotline, praying for intervention. Corporate promised an investigation. Nothing changed. They even went to the cops. The police shrugged and told them it was a civil matter between employees and employer. "File a lawsuit if you want," they said, "but expect it to drag on for 3 years and cost you more than you lost." Brad Sterling just kept on smiling that lifeless smile. He knew the system protected guys like him. He knew desperate workers couldn't afford high-powered lawyers. He knew that in the vast, cold machinery of corporate America, 10 warehouse employees were nothing more than disposable cogs. What Brad Sterling didn't know was that Mike Riley had a brother, and that brother was Rick Riley, president of the Rust Belt chapter of the Iron Reapers Motorcycle Club. Mike had never asked his brother for a favor, not in 30 years. Through all the hard times and through their dad's passing, through the recession that nearly cost Mike his house, he'd never once turned to Rick with his problems. Their worlds were separate. Mike worked, Rick rode. That was the understanding. But when Maria Sanchez showed up to work, tears streaming down her face, because her electricity had been shut off. When Tyrone Jenkins confessed he might have to yank his daughter out of her freshman year at State College. When Samuel Olson admitted he was skipping meals just to make ends meet, something inside Mike snapped. He called his brother. Rick listened, stone-faced, without interrupting. When Mike finally finished, there was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. "How much did this scumbag Sterling steal from your people?" "Total?" Rick finally asked, his voice low and dangerous. Mike had done the math. $47,000 over 6 months. $47,000, siphoned directly from the pockets of hard-working families living paycheck to paycheck. "Send me the address of this." "Logistics depot," Rick said, his voice hardening. "And brother, go to work on Monday like nothing is different." Monday morning dawned cold and bleak. The sky choked with grey clouds that threatened rain but delivered nothing. Mike walked into Ironwood Logistics Depot at 6 a.m., ready for his shift. He punched his time card. He went to his station. He started scanning boxes. At exactly 8:15, the rumbling began. It started as a distant thunder, barely audible over the roar of the warehouse machinery. Then it grew louder and louder, until the concrete floor itself seemed to vibrate. With the sound of 400 engines screaming in unison, workers stopped dead in their tracks. Forklifts froze mid-lift. The conveyor belts droned on, but nobody was watching them anymore. Brad Sterling strutted out of his glass-walled office, coffee mug in hand, a look of bewildered annoyance twisting his features. "What the hell is that noise?" he barked. Through the massive loading bay doors, they came, motorcycle after motorcycle, chrome glinting like sharpened steel even under the overcast sky. Leather vests emblazoned with the winged reaper that needed no introduction. 400 iron reapers roared into the parking lot of Ironwood Logistics Depot and formed a perfect semicircle around the main entrance. The engines died, all at once, and in the sudden, echoing silence. Brad Sterling dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the floor, but no one noticed. Rick Riley swung his leg over his Harley and walked toward the building. He was a big man, not necessarily tall, but wide, with arms that spoke of decades of hard labor before he found his true calling on 2 wheels. His beard was gray now, his face etched with the lines of sun and wind, but his eyes burned with a clarity that made other men flinch. Behind him strode 400 brothers and sisters. They didn't run, they didn't shout, they simply walked, their boots drumming out a steady rhythm on the asphalt, a rhythm that sounded like the heartbeat of justice itself. Brad Sterling stumbled backward, away from the entrance. His face had turned the color of week-old milk. "I'm looking for Brad Sterling," Mike Riley announced, his voice carrying across the Ironwood Logistics Depot floor. "No need to shout. I'm told he's a thief who preys on working people." The warehouse workers parted like water. Some recognized Mike standing near his station, eyes forward, hands at his sides. Brad tried to run. He made it exactly 12 steps before 2 bikers appeared in front of him. Not threatening, not touching, just standing there, blocking his path with bodies that had seen harder men try harder things. "Please," Brad stammered. I don't know what this is about. There's been some mistake." Mike walked up to him slowly, each step deliberate. When he stopped, their faces were close enough that Brad could see every line, every scar, every mile etched into the older man's skin. $47,000, Mike said quietly, stolen from 10 families, my brother's friends, people who work honest jobs and come home with broken backs so their children can eat. "I was just following company policy," Brad whispered. Mike nodded slowly. Then he turned to address the gathered workers, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "This man says he was following policy, but there is no policy. That lets you steal from people who trust you. There's no rule. That allows you to take food from children's mouths so you can pad your bonus. What there is justice. And justice has arrived." From the crowd of bikers, a woman stepped forward. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and a leather vest that bore patches from 30 years of riding. In her hands, she carried a metal briefcase. She set it on the ground and opened it. Inside were stacks of bills, cash. $47,000, Mike announced. Every penny this man stole will be returned to the workers he robbed, today, right now. Witnessed by everyone present. Brad Sterling began to cry. "You can't do this," he sobbed. "This is extortion. I'll call the police." Mike smiled. And unlike Brad's cold expression, this smile held genuine warmth. "Please do. Call them. Tell them that 400 citizens are returning stolen wages to their rightful owners. Tell them that a corrupt manager has been robbing workers for 6 months while the system looked the other way. See what they say." Brad did not call anyone. He stood there, tears running down his face, as one by one, the 10 workers stepped forward to receive their stolen wages. Maria Sanchez, Tyrone Jenkins, Samuel Olson. Each one counted their money, signed a receipt that a biker lawyer had prepared, and walked away with what was rightfully theirs. When the distribution was complete, Mike turned back to Brad. One final time. "You will resign from this position today. You will never work in management again if I hear that you've stolen from working people anywhere in this country. I will know, and I will come back. Do you understand?" Brad nodded frantically. "Good." Mike patted him on the cheek, almost gently. "Now, go clean out your desk." As Brad stumbled away tighter toward his office, Mike walked over to his brother. The two men stood facing each other for a long moment. "You didn't have to do this," Mike Riley said quietly. Raphael shook his head. "Family's not just blood, brother. It's the people who stand with you. When the world tries to push you down, your friends are my family now, and nobody steals from my family." The bikers remounted their motorcycles. 400 engines roared back to life, the sound now triumphant rather than threatening. They rode out of the parking lot, in perfect formation, leaving behind a warehouse full of workers who would never forget what they had witnessed. That evening, Maria Sanchez paid her electric bill and had enough left over to buy her children new winter coats. Tyrone Jenkins called his daughter to tell her she wouldn't have to drop out of college. Samuel Olson sat down to a full meal for the first time in months and cried tears of relief. And in the break room of the Ironwood Logistics Depot, someone had put up a new coffee machine. Nobody knew who bought it. Nobody asked. Before we end, we have one special request for you. Comment below with the words, "Justice finds a way," to show that you stand with workers everywhere who deserve to be paid fairly for honest labor. Because sometimes the system fails us. Sometimes the people in power abuse their position. But when ordinary people can stand together, when we refuse to accept injustice in silence, mountains can move and thieves can fall. Would you have done what Mike Riley did? Would you have reached out for help when the system refused to listen? Think about it and remember this story. The next time you see someone being taken advantage of, because you never know who their family might be, and you never know what 400 brothers and sisters can accomplish when they ride together for what is right.